Hi there. My name is Lisa Dow, and I'm the physiotherapist behind the Keep Breathing program. What we're going to do today is I'm going to talk about the importance of adding exercise into the management of COPD. So I'm going to talk about how I do it with the Keep Breathing program. It's a model that I've developed and it's working. So I'll tell you about that. And then we will do a little bit of talking about what is COPD, just a little bit brief, and how that affects people with COPD, how their lung condition affects their ability to exercise. And we'll talk about why it's important to exercise, how exercise influences breathing, other than making you short of breath. And then we will talk about some of the strategies that we need to use to make um, breathing when you're short of breath during exercise manageable, because let's face it, when you can't breathe, it's terrifying. And when you can't breathe, the thought of exercise can be terrifying. So we're going to talk about Keep Breathing first, because it's a program that I've developed and I'm implementing and it's working. So let's start with what works. I will share my screen. Okay. So the Keep Breathing program. So, what is it? Well, the Keep Breathing program is a program that I developed as a physiotherapist with many, many years working as a physiotherapist through all scope of physiotherapy practice. But I did spend about the last 15 years focusing almost solely on working with people with chronic lung disease. I ran a hospital-based pulmonary rehab program for quite a long time. I do deliver virtual pulmonary rehab for the FLA Ontario Health Team, their integrated COPD pathway program. So I have lots of experience with that. Um, so the Keep Breathing program, based on my experience as a physiotherapist, I've taken lots of courses, that sort of stuff. So I'm pretty confident that I'm well versed in being able to deliver programming for people with chronic lung disease. The program itself includes exercise, which is a big component. Education and support, though, are also big components. The program has been recognized and supported by COPD Canada, the Lung Health Foundation, which used to be the Lung Association, Healthcare Excellence Canada. I did a few projects with that group where we worked on providing virtual care that was appropriate and providing innovations in healthcare. The Keep Breathing program has won a few awards in those categories, which is amazing. Um, the Ontario Health Team, the Ontario Health Team obviously supports it. The Prince Edward Family Health Team, I'm on their referral system. I also provide actually cardiac rehab for that health team. And then we're nicely supported by Inspire, one of our regional oxygen supply companies. They're very supportive. As are other oxygen supply companies in our area. Um, as far as respirologists, I get referrals from respirologists in our region, the Southeast Lynn. But recently, I've been getting referrals from across the province and even a few from out of province. I have a couple of ladies that participate from Victoria. So the program is well received by the people that do have a big stake in providing appropriate care for people with chronic lung disease. So keep breathing, exercise, education, support, and well developed, I think. Okay, so the exercise part of it, what is it? So it's live, it's virtual. I use Zoom. Zoom is a really user-friendly app for seniors to use. As long as you can use email, you can usually use Zoom. So we use Zoom. It is provided at a really low cost, and that's really important because exercise isn't really something that, you can do for a few weeks, a few months, and then kind of take it in your pocket and carry it away with you. It is something that they have to do long-term ongoing, so it needs to be a manageable cost for them. Um, COPD has multiple levels of people, various amounts that they are um, affected by the condition. So the program is multi-leveled. There's some people that are still quite active, other people that are much more needing a lower level of programming. So making sure that the program is right, that everybody is getting something out of it. Um, the access to the program is unlimited. So you can see I do 4 exercise sessions a week, Monday through Thursday. Um, People can come whatever works for them. That was my intent, is that, whatever days work. People with chronic lung disease tend to have lots of appointments, so making sure there's options for them. Um, and also having a video library. So making sure that they have options for days when they can't attend. Um, or they can attend at the time, they have that option to go to a video that I've made. I've made about 80 or so videos. So there's lots of options for people to access, um, to make sure they get in what they need to do. The videos are also multi-leveled and with some variety in how the exercise is presented. So depending on what people like. Um, yeah, so 4 days a week we meet live. Some people do come every day because they know that it makes them feel better, to get their chest wall moving a little bit, to practice their breathing strategies. Um, some people come a couple of the days in the week to exercise more vigorously than the other 2 days a week. They want to just come on and have that social connection. So um, they're unlimited. They can come as many times as they want. They also have pretty much unlimited access to me, to help them problem solve, to work through when things are changing for them. If they have a question and they need to figure out what do they need to do, um, they can call me, email me. We can do separate Zoom sessions if as needed. Yeah, so exercise, there's lots of options, and lots of appropriate options, and they can do it almost whenever they want. The other parts, the support and the education, even though exercise is a really big part of the program, the support piece and the education piece are equally, I would say, important. There's lots of avenues for them to get support and education. The main education piece is, actually, I wouldn't even say it's the main education piece because education is happening all the time. We have, before our Tuesday, Thursday classes, we have a window of 15 minutes where we do brief check-ins, chats, question answering, updating. We have a formal chat night once. When I mean formal, it means it's scheduled, not that it's a formal event, because nothing is formal about us. We're very down to earth. um, the chat night is one Monday evening a month at 7 o'clock, and the chat is about something that the group has expressed an interest in, learning about, a gap in their knowledge of their lung disease. Maybe it's just a refresher on something, but it is guided by what the group has been chatting about in our pre-exercise sessions. Um, I try, if I don't have the expertise or there's somebody that could talk on the topic maybe a little bit better than I can, I invite I invite a colleague to come in and meet with us. Not sure why that thumbs down. I don't know how I did that, but anyway, I invite a colleague to come in and talk. Sometimes it's a pharmacist, a respiratory therapist, a dietitian. We've had hospice come in, grief counselors. We've unfortunately lost a few people in our group. It's the nature of chronic disease. So having an avenue to talk about, the feelings that go with that. Um, We've talked to a psychotherapist, which is so great. The psychotherapist comes on a couple of times a year just to check in, to talk about anxiety, depression, all the mental health aspects that come in when you're dealing with a chronic disease. She's excellent. My group loves Tracy. Um, then sometimes the chat sessions are absolutely related to what is happening with our breathing. Sometimes they're just adjacent. So we've had a residential transitionalist come in that talked about what happens if you decide you have to move, knowing that this is chronic disease we're dealing with. So having somebody come in and talk about, how do you even start the process of thinking about moving? How do you organize your stuff? What do you do with your stuff? So that was a really great session. We've had lots of different sessions. We've had yoga instructors come in. We've had massage therapists come in. We've had sometimes some of our people in our group that do interesting things. One lady's really involved in the Huntington's disease community. She does some education in the community. So she came in and talked. We've had the Alzheimer's Society come in and talk. So anyway, lots of chatting going on, lots of education sessions. So those chat nights, I record them as long as everybody is in agreement. And then those will go on our private Facebook pages. Our private Facebook pages is where our people will find their the education sessions and all the resources that go with the education sessions. They will find the chat night recordings and the exercise sessions so they can go do their bonus exercise sessions. We do have a Facebook page that is for communicating within the group. That's our Keep Breathing Facebook page. It's for their communication with me, anything that's going on in the program, and then also so they can chat with each other. Sometimes we have a chat in the middle of an afternoon if we have somebody in the group that wants to just, have a chin wag, they call it. Which is a great way for them to support each other. So sometimes, we have people going through things or wanting to celebrate things. So we will have a afternoon coffee and chat. So lots of opportunities for them to connect with each other and learn from each other, and learn from people in our community, which is awesome. One of the things I didn't realize was concerned about maybe when I started the Keep Breathing program was that ability for people to connect with each other virtually. And it has been amazing how they have made connections and how they support each other and are there for each other. So Keep Breathing exercise, a big component. We'll talk about how it's the same but different than regular exercise. And then the other big part that makes working with people with lung disease is making sure they're supported and educated in what's happening. So the resources, when we have a chat night, we have lots of information that comes in. So I try and consolidate our research, our consolidate the education pieces and put them into resources. Some of them I've created in my prior dealings with people with chronic disease. And we have resources on, you can see how to use your monitors, how to sleep well, um, how to manage being short of breath in general, how to manage shortness of breath on the stairs is another big one, how to do controlled coughing, how to manage in the heat of the summer. How to use your inhalers, how to talk to your doctor about inhalers, how to prepare for an appointment with your specialist. That's a really important one that I always make sure that we go over every few months, because when you go to the doctor's office, we want our people to be really well prepared to get the most out of their appointments as possible, because it can be really overwhelming. So we have a few resources for them and I always encourage people print them off. However you want to access them, access the resources. So how do people get to me? Well, lots of different ways. I'm well supported by, as I say, the local, regional, and provincial um, respirologists. So often I will get faxed referrals. Um, Sometimes it's word of mouth, so people will self-refer to me. If it's somebody from the healthcare community, um, I usually say, give the person my card, but also get their permission to fax me a referral because then I have their information and I can follow up. It's really terrifying for people with lung disease to pick up that phone often to put themselves out there when they haven't been exercising. It's scary. So if I can call them and help them understand what we're going to do, that it's not so scary and that they're going to be well supported, that works better. People that self-refer um, hear about the program sometimes from the respirologists in Toronto. Lots of them just have people self-refer, um, or they know somebody who's been in the program, or their daughter, son has heard about me, so that sort of thing. So they can fax or phone or email, whatever works. And then what happens is I will call the person, usually within the first 48 hours, I would say, often 24 hours. You got to get them when they're in the mind frame. On that phone call, if they're interested, could be 10 minutes, it could be an hour and a half, depending on what their needs are at that moment of time. Often I find when somebody finally connects with me, they have a lot of questions. They maybe haven't had the opportunity to have a lot of their questions answered before. Appointments with other healthcare professionals are time limited. Um, so I try and, fill in some gaps if those come up when we first meet on the phone. So we talk about sort of what's led them to where we are right at the moment, what's happening with their breathing, if they've had recent infections, what medications are they on, if they know them, what are their inhalers. I do a brief scanning to see how they're using their inhalers because their inhaler doesn't work if you don't use it properly. So we do a little bit of a brief review there. And then we talked a little bit of past medical history because that can be important. So, what else is in their history that might influence their ability to participate in exercise? Have they exercised before? What experience did they have? Um, and then, after we sort of have sorted out their starting point and maybe where they want to get to by being part of the program, if they are a little bit concerned about using Zoom, we will do a Zoom trial. Sometimes we do it right then and there if they have the technology available and they have the time, or I have the time. We will do a Zoom trial, or I'll schedule it for when works for both of us. And that's just an opportunity to practice getting on and off Zoom. So it takes the worry about that part of the technology part away. Most people can do it. I've got people in the group that are, one gentleman in particular that's in his 90s, and I taught him how to use Zoom, and he's able to do it. So I'm pretty confident that most people, if they can use email, can do it. And so then if, everything, the person is wanting to join, we've done the trials, they're stable, all that sort of stuff. I'll connect them with the Evolve Wellness Studio that I work out of. They'll get their paperwork done, sign a waiver, and then we're ready to go. So it usually takes um, maybe a week just to kind of get all the pieces in place for them to join the class. So why is it important? So, why is it important that we have programming such as the Keep Breathing programming or other programs for people with chronic lung disease? It's really important because COPD is the highest diagnosed chronic disease in our area, the Southeast Lynn. It is the number one reason um, that people go to the hospital, other than giving birth. COPD highest hospital visits. Um, there are thousands and thousands of people in our area with COPD. Now, the research tells us that 18% of people with COPD will have one hospital admission a year. So if you've got, you know, 3,500 people and you take 18%, that's a lot of people coming to the hospital. And then 14% will have two or more admissions a year. One admission is usually, 5 to 10 days. So when you think about that, that is a lot of hospital days. It's a lot of suffering for these people, and it's a lot of cost to the system. So it's really important that we figure out how to self-manage from the system point of view, people with COPD. And then what do we know about people with COPD if they're exercising? Well, we know if they're exercising and they're spending time learning about their condition and they feel well supported, well, they're going to have fewer chest infections. They're going to require fewer medications. They're going to recover faster when they have a chest infection. They're going to fall less times. One of the main reason why people with COPD go to the hospital is chest infections. The second reason why is falls. Um, if they're exercising and they understand their condition, they're going to require less supplemental oxygen. They'll know how to use their oxygen properly. So all of those add up to fewer visits to the emerge, and fewer admissions to the hospital. Um, People who are exercising, fitter and stronger. Why that's really important for people with COPD is because their movement becomes more efficient. More efficient means needing less oxygen for any given movement. So really important when you're struggling, having enough oxygen, if you can be more efficient, makes a big difference on how you function. The immune system has an enhanced response in people who are exercising. So, person with COPD that is exercising, their immune system will work to recognize infections faster and have a bigger, quicker response to managing that infection. Again, improve balance because you're stronger. If you're stronger, and your joints are more mobile, you're less likely to have falls. Your balance will be improved. They can stay in their home longer. They can be independent longer. They have better, more engagement in their communities, whether that is their online community, whether that is their family community, or their community beyond that. The fitter, the healthier, the stronger they are, they're more likely to be involved, which is important for mental health, right? Um, and we know that people that are exercising, particularly those that have COPD, if they understand um, exercise, that shortness of breath is part of exercise, and we have ways of managing it, handling it. They feel more confident with going out, with doing the things that they need to do. They feel, if they understand their condition, they feel more self-efficacy as being able to manage that chronic condition, that they, will know when things are changing. They will know when they need to start medications and those things. So um, the other thing that exercise teaches these people is that they can do hard things. And that is one of our mottos, is that we can do hard things. We sometimes have to change how we do things and use strategies to help us manage, but we can do hard things. And from being involved in the program for 5 years now, we know it works. We know the COPD, the Keep Breathing program for the COPD population really, really works. The program's continued to grow, grows every year, which is great. The people that come to the program, if they come and they stay, um, they really stay. But my I like to do keep some stats, and 70% of the people in the program attend 70% of the time. So that's really strong attendance and adherence for any kind of program, but even more impressive when you consider they have chronic disease and frequent illness. So really important that obviously it shows that they feel better and when they attend, so they attend. Um, as I mentioned, the referral sources have really expanded. Originally, it was just sort of word of mouth. Um, People from that I had worked with pre-COVID, pre-COVID, were looking for something to do, and that's how um, Keep Breathing started during COVID. So people had heard and they came, but now I've got a whole network of respirologists across the province, really, that refer the Lung Health Foundation, their Fitness for Breath people. When that program closed, a lot came to me. Um, I've worked with that program quite a bit, the Fitness for Breath. We have attendees from, I say, like from our region across the province and across the country. I've been involved in lots of lung transplant journeys. Our group really embraces the people in the program that are pre-transplant and post-transplant. They're a special group of people. And then I have expanded some programming into like a sister kind of program called Keep Moving. But you can see from the pictures that our people are engaged and are active in their lives. Um, so how does Keep Breathing compare to a regular exercise program? Well, we have all the same components. We do warm up, cool down, strength, cardio. We pay special attention to posture and balance. Um, the warm up cool down is tends to be very dynamic because we got to get that chest wall moving. We need to have our joints really mobile for safety, for balance, and for moving our chest wall. Our shoulders have to move, our um, spine has to move, our hips have to move. Um, the breathing focus is not breath holding. So when they're doing a movement and it's feeling like a stretching movement, I don't want them to hold their breath. I want them to focus on blowing out, not holding their breath. They're going to blow out when they're doing the hard part of the um, exercise, and they're going to really try and focus on diaphragmatic breathing when you're in a more of a calm state, a warm up, cool down space. That's easier to focus on the diaphragmatic breathing. For strength training, we focus on the breathing muscles, right? But we also really spend a lot of time on legs. Legs are really, really important. They're big muscles. They eat up a lot of oxygen. So we want to make sure they are as strong as possible. We work on chest, arm, neck, and back. All of those muscles are considered breathing muscles. Um, One of the really important things to remember, yes, these people have chronic disease. Yes, a lot of them are on oxygen, but that doesn't mean that strengthening should be easy. It needs to be challenging. So we do things like modified planks, we do wall push-ups, we do um, uh, lot we do modified burpee jumps. We do lots of strength training that is challenging. We lift weights. We do farmers carries. We do all those things, but it has to be obviously with focusing on their breathing strategies, and that is focusing on not holding our breath, not taking that breath in and holding it, but focusing on blowing out and blowing out when they're doing, say, the hard part of the activity, which might be when they're curling their biceps, when they're doing sit to stands, when they're coming to standing up. So really important that the strength training is whole body, special focus on the legs, even on the arms. Arms are breathing muscles, believe it or not. They're attached to our rib cage, so they can their secondary function is to lift the rib cage. So really important that arms are strong, legs are strong, trunk is strong, abdominals are strong, and doing that in a way that's challenging but manageable, not focusing on holding the breath. Cardio we do in short intervals. We do 3, 4 minutes at a time, breaking each one down to 30 seconds at a time. trying to make the cardio sessions, yes, they're to improve their tolerance, but really what's really important for the cardio sessions is they're really focusing on learning the breathing strategies. So when they are walking to the doctor's office, when they are walking to get the mail, when they're going up and down the stairs, that they are using those breathing strategies when they're short of breath, like they are when they're doing cardio. It's a great learning opportunity for breathing management strategies. The focus that we do is in through the nose, out through the mouth, blowing out with pursed lips. Um, and blowing out for longer than breathing in, trying to reduce the air that's in the remaining in the lungs. The posture part is really important. So posture is part of all the things that we do. People with lung disease tend to have a forward posture, so we need to work on getting that chest open. I really like to focus on the position of the shoulder blades and then balance. We include balance with strength training, um, balance with our cardio sessions, balance with our warm up and cool down. So it's really important with all parts of the exercise program. So when you look at it from the outside looking in, looks pretty much like a regular old exercise program. There's just a little bit of tweaks that we do to make it manageable. Okay. So, why do we have to have these little tweaks? So, people with COPD have air trapped in their lungs. So, COPD is chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The airflow is obstructed or blocked. So, the airflow has trouble moving because their airways are thickened. They're thickened with inflammation. Sometimes they're thickened with some scar tissue, but inflammation tends to be the big one. And then they're also the diameter is reduced because there's mucus in their lungs. The chronic inflammation results in chronic mucus production for a lot of people. And so then those airways, instead of a nice big open airway, becomes a smaller tube, which makes more resistance as the air is trying to flow through. And then the air sacs, which are at the bottom of the chain of the airway system, are the alveoli, and those are those sacs that are responsible for um, gas exchange. So taking the air that we breathe in, the oxygen, pulling it into the blood system, and then taking the byproduct of energy production, the carbon dioxide, taking it out of the blood system, putting it in the lungs, and blowing it out. So a nice healthy alveoli looks kind of like a nice fresh raspberry with lots of little lumps and bumps. Those lumps and bumps give the surface lots of area for doing that gas exchange. People with emphysema will have a breakdown in the walls of those alveoli. So instead of looking like a nice plump raspberry, it'll look kind of like an old grape. So we lose all that area for the gas exchange to happen, and the walls become kind of like baggy, so they don't expand and they don't contract to help push the air out again. So people with COPD, their airflow is obstructed from the what happens in the airways being swollen full of mucus, and then the gas exchange is impaired because of the walls of the alveoli. So basically what happens is the person with COPD can breathe the air in. It comes in really nicely, but then when they try to blow the air out, the alveoli can't help push it out, and the airways are so small that they can't get the air out again. So they are getting this buildup of air stuck in their lungs. So, what happens when you exercise, of course, you increase your rate of breathing. So, your respiration rate goes up, and then your depth of breathing, your diaphragm is engaged. So, it pulls open. You're taking bigger breaths faster. So, thinking about that air that's stuck in the lungs, it becomes more and more because they're breathing in, but they're not breathing out. So, that chest becomes really overinflated, and breathing on a really overinflated chest is really uncomfortable and it's scary and you feel like you're suffocating. If you wanted to see what that would feel like, do not try this if you have lung disease, if you know you have lung disease, but if you wanted to try it, what it feels like for somebody with COPD to try and breathe quickly like they would in exercise, if they're not using their strategies, what it feels like. Take a deep breath in, fill those lungs all the way up, and then reduce it by half. So blow out only half. When you've blown out half, fill them up again, blow out half again. When you've blown out that second half, you're going to breathe as fast as you can. So it feels like your chest wall doesn't move, right? Much harder to breathe. So that's what the trapped air feels like. That's what we're trying to reduce, which we can through using our breathing strategies. The main one that we use is called pursed lip breathing. Probably you've heard of it before. You've seen people using pursed lip breathing in the past. Basically, it's a strategy where we encourage the person to breathe in through their nose and out through their mouth. They're going to breathe in for a count of one or two and blow out for a longer count, of maybe two, three, four, five. So when they're first learning this, they're going to feel like maybe they can only blow out for because they've been had the trapped air for a while. They need to work on that, getting reversing the in versus out. Often they're breathing in for longer than blowing out, and that's led to the trapped air. So getting them to equalize and then blow out for longer takes some practice. They're going to blow out like they're going to whistle. That puckering those lips creates a little back pressure when they're blowing out, which helps to pop open. Remember those alveoli, those gas exchange parts, they're collapsed a little bit. So a little bit of back pressure keeps the air in the lungs microseconds longer, which helps to pop open the airways a little bit, which helps the air come out for longer, has more time to come out. And then you're going to blow out for longer than breathing in, as I said, so to try and get that breathing rate to come down. We try and get them to breathe in through their nose because your nose, couple of reasons. One is when we breathe through our nose, it's a natural, it tells our brain that we're relaxed, right? Nose breathing. If we breathe through our mouth, that's our fight or flight, right? So our brain thinks, oh, we're being chased by a bear. So all of our systems are amped up. So we want to, if you're feeling short of breath, we want our people to be able to try and start relaxing. So breathing in through the nose tells the brain, slow it down. The other thing it does is it filters the air, warms the air, and it also is a signal to release a substance called oxide, which helps to do some purification, helps to open up the capillaries to help absorb the oxygen. So there's lots of good reasons to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, because again, it helps to create that back pressure. So pursed lip breathing, we use it to control our breathing, to try and get relaxed when we're feeling anxious, helps to reduce the air trapping, and all of those things helps us to exercise more efficiently. So that's pursed lip breathing. Exertional breathing, that is when you're doing an activity that is challenging to prevent the big breath in and hold, right? Because now we know that we get trapped air. So if we're taking all these gulps of air in, that's going to add to the trapped air and make breathing more challenging, more uncomfortable. So we're going to have the person who is maybe doing strength training or going up the stairs, doing something that's hard for them to focus on blowing out when they're doing the hard part. Okay, so as they're doing a curl, they're going to blow out. As they're doing a sit to stand or a squat, as they're extending back up, they're going to blow out. And then when we're doing our cardio session, so it's more steady state exercise, we're going to focus on pursed lip breathing, blowing out for longer than breathing in. So that is called controlled breathing. Diaphragmatic breathing, as I said, we do that as part of our warm up and cool down. We do some trying to expand our diaphragm when we're doing lots of our strengthening. It's harder for them to focus on diaphragmatic breathing if they haven't been doing it before because they have chronically had issues with their breathing, their diaphragms maybe not working. So it's more effective, I find, to practice the diaphragmatic breathing in times when they're quiet, away from exercise sometimes. And then once they've learned it in that space, then they can hopefully have some carryover when they're more active. Um, how do we keep the exercise safe for them? Well, we use the modified Borg scale. We want them to know that it's okay to push themselves when they're breathing, when they're exercising. It's important to be increasing your breathing rate as long as we're using our strategies. Um, so we want them working hard enough that they're making a difference sort of physiologically. But not too hard that then their breathing becomes not recoverable. So a 3-4-5 on the modified board. We talk about using a talk test, making sure they can talk. They shouldn't be able to sing, but they should be able to talk while we're doing the exercise. And then for safety, using the finger pulse oximeter to double check when they're exercising that their oxygen level is in the right range. Sometimes we find people who can't manage their oxygen level while they're exercising, and then I call up their respirologist, their family doctor, or encourage them to do that, and we get them tested for oxygen. Um, so their finger monitor is their backup when they're recovering from our exercise session. We have built-in breaks in our program where they do their checks. So if their numbers don't improve or their numbers are not in a safe range, that's our time to make sure that we are addressing that. I like them to have their inhaler with their rescue inhaler with their air chamber. If you don't have your air chamber, you're getting a really low dose of your rescue inhaler. So air chamber and rescue inhalers close by, and then also a phone for safety. Um, my setup is that I have a really large screen. You can see my screen, my computer versus the screen that I have. So I have a really good view of each person in the class. Um, so the other thing that I do is I know a lot of virtual classes, they have everybody turn their microphone off. I like microphones on so I can hear their breathing. If somebody has obviously noise in the background, they'll shut it off. But I like to be able to hear them. Um, so we can really make sure that it's safe. I also have my phone close by and I have all their contacts on my computer. So if anybody, touch wood, never had to do it, got into trouble, I would be able to call for help, either 911. I also have their current address. That's the other thing. If they're not exercising at home, they have to tell me where they are that day and where I record it just in case. We need to make sure where they are. And then I also have a secondary emergency contact in case they've, stubbed their toe or don't need emergency help, but they need somebody to check on them. So, lots of safety measures built in. Education is the key, though, to make them feel confident in what they're doing. Um, so, just to wrap up, people with COPD, they need to have ways of managing their condition because there's lots of obstacles in front of them. We need them to be functional, and the way to improve their function, stay engaged in their communities, is get their bodies working better. I always say we're working on getting our bodies to work for us. So exercise is a really good part of that, and then the other pieces of communication with them is really important, but feeling connected and feeling supported and keeping up to date with what is new in their world of respiratory care helps them long term being able to stay out of the hospital. And we want them to reduce their chest infections because that saves lung tissue going forward, and it keeps them more engaged in their life. So exercise is really important. So are the other components. We have to do a little bit of um, adapting to how we do the programming by making sure that we're giving the right cueing for breathing, um, build in some pacing and some breaks for those that need it, need multiple levels, but making sure that we're challenging enough to make a difference. I would welcome any questions if you have them. If you have a question or you have people that you want involved in the program or you're interested in maybe creating a program, reach out to me. I am more than happy to share my experiences. Um, this work is really fulfilling and we really see it make a difference. So I am happy to share. Thank you for listening to me today, and connect with me. Have a great day.